in the cafeteria fund, which is also what we're going to be approving here in another couple resolutions, the transfer from the general fund to the cafeteria fund. And when we flip over to the appropriation side, you're going to see 150,000 on the appropriation side as well. And then the scholarships, that's just a tidy up activity in the scholarship funds for the year. Let me go ahead and pull open the appropriation sheet and show you. That's also very hard to read. Okay, but it's the same concept. We started off at the beginning of the year. In June of last year, we passed temporary appropriations, and that got us through the first 3 months of the fiscal year. And then we had, I think, one amendment to the temporary appropriations. Then we passed our permanent at the September meeting. Sometimes we do that in August, sometimes we do that in September, but, and then the amendments to the permanent appropriations all the way through, and then until the end here in June, and we are amending the food service fund for the 150. And then also, like I said before, this is actually a decrease in appropriations to the scholarship fund. One of those scholarships, we ended up not paying anything out. It was the first year for it. So when we pay it out, it'll actually be next fiscal year. So that was actually a decrease. And that's where we are on that.
Motion? Motion McElroy, second.
McElroy. The next one is our temporary appropriations for the fiscal year that's coming up. So fiscal year 21 starts on July 1st, and it's across various funds, but the total amount is that $12 million figure.
Motion?
Motion.
Archer, second. Stottsbury.
Archer?
Yes.
Stottsbury?
Yes.
Carpenter?
Yes.
McElroy?
Yes.
McKee?
Yes.
Okay, and then next I have workers' compensation, which is on a fiscal year program. This is not a change from prior year. We're still going through management, which is who we've been going through since 2010. Please don't think that that's not because we haven't shopped around, because I do shop for prices every year. And for the benefit of the service we get from them and the continuity of services, we get a very good, and every year I say something to them about, well, you gave me a 3% increase, and then they always adjust it down to something lower. So we play that little game, but considering it's very good, and I recommend it.
Motion? Stottsbury, second. Carpenter.
Stottsbury?
Yes.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Archer?
Yes.
McElroy?
Yeah.
McKee?
Yes.
I have 3 then and now certificates for your approval, and the information's listed there on your screen. American Star is the company that did our repaint project, and the 18 is not a mistake. They didn't invoice us, and we didn't. There was just a misunderstanding, and
yeah. So that was actually something that we did not have included in phase 1. Let's go clear back to phase 1. This is the painting of the back hall and the cross hall lockers, as well as that glazed block. And there was confusion on their part whether they were. This was outside the project, or they were working for UCCI as the inside contractor. This was clearly outside the project, and them higher than that.
It says in the statute of limitations on that.
Well, let me tell you, we probably could have done this a year sooner. That's how long we put them off.
by the time she raised it to our awareness, and then we were having energy optimizers research it, and they were trying to get a hold of UCCI, but then there was some.
Truthfully, I was always pretty much sure where it was supposed to come from. I was just hoping someone would think different.
And then COVID came
Time
along.
to pay up.
And that delayed everything. She wasn't even in the office, so like 3 months went by before she even responded to, anyway.
We already had this earmark, right? It was
Back then.
Yeah, back
but
then.
Not, yeah. So it's a then and now because, does everybody understand then and now? It's saying then, it was available then, and it's available now. And so because it's over the dollar threshold, which is $3,000, for anything under 3,000, you have given me the authority to approve myself. And then anything over that, I bring to you for your additional blessing. So,
Now with train, that service agreement.
okay, that was there's actually just see how there's just a small chunk of time that we're talking about? 3/1/20. From 3/1 through today that we're approving it actually is what we are talking about being then and now certified. The rest of it would actually be fine, but it's one contract and one price, so I have to bring the whole thing to you.
So is it,
It's a service agreement that is effective from March 1 through February 28, 29, whatever it depends on the year, but and it's for that elementary chiller, the big, and so they come out and monitor it, service it as necessary. Like they collaborate with Jim.
Yearly.
and honestly, I wouldn't even know we paid it yearly if it wouldn't have been on it then and now.
Yeah, and it would not have been on your radar because, I mean, it would have been on the checklist.
Yeah.
That you approve
Yeah.
every month, but it wouldn't have stood out. It's not we don't have to bid it. It's not over, the 50,000.
So like
It's
Kevin
routine.
just said, do we pay that every year?
We will. We did last year. And then,
Is there additional train pieces of equipment that we pay?
We don't have other warranties for training.
the new, because the high school one is through,
It's not train,
it's not trained.
Johnson Controls?
No, it's,
carrier.
Carrier.
Found it.
Need a few more maintenance projects.
Now,
I just remembered that they were two different companies and
I'm curious to see if train is responsive and worth that.
Well, I would tell you always before, I thought they were. And once they merged with Johnson Controls, I would say the jury's still out.
Okay.
But I would tell you that I think now in 30 years, never worked in a building with air conditioning until we started air conditioning here. Between those service agreements and the controls companies, it's the only
Yeah,
thing
they're
that
killing
in
us.
education business
Yeah.
worse than that is Coke and Pepsi contracts. I'm just being honest. It is crazy. This is what.
Thank gosh Jimmy's in the middle.
Oh, my.
so explain that, you said that's for the then part, now it's just between now and, or today and June 1st.
saying
All you're
back
saying
then, when the term of the service, when we obligated ourselves to the service back in March, the money was available then and it's available now.
Yeah, I just thought you said it was covered just between now and
Oh, yeah, so the reason, because the purchase order isn't gonna be dated until tonight,
yeah, makes sense.
and it is dated prior to that,
I just
so,
didn't want that to be a portion of the total. That's the total.
no, it's the whole thing.
Okay,
So,
that's what I was getting at.
That was
A little
it.
slow.
no, you're good. And then the third one is the plumbers and pipe fitters. We actually entered into a contract, but I didn't know that there was who was participating and when. I wasn't aware.
So depending on the amount of participants, will that amount fluctuate? And do we know now?
It's a per student amount.
Okay,
So you know right now that number's gonna double next
Okay.
year. So yeah, it's a per student
Okay.
amount. So now the thing that you have to realize in that number is though, that's not an additional amount. This is where I think people get confused. Those 4 kids, for example, were going to school elsewhere. They were choosing another option. This option's the lesser expensive of the two.
exactly.
Yeah, so this is not an additional cost. They actually returned from another option and now they're participating in this option. Now, that's not to say that,
We won't.
like,
have
next
that.
year, we're gonna have a couple kids that were here, they're gonna go there. But it is a great option. We have more kids participating in this program next year than we have leaving campus for CCP.
You mean the plumber?
We'll have 8 next year.
We just need to get those purchase orders in place.
And that's competitive, just so you know, that's competitive amongst the schools in our area. And so we'll have almost 2/3 of the total participants next year.
That's awesome. Like Trina said, just gotta get the purchase orders in place.
Motion,
And don't wait to pay these guys for 2 years.
Motion.
Archer, second.
Second, oh, go ahead.
Got to you.
Archer,
Yes.
McElroy,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Stottsberry,
Yeah.
McKee.
Yes.
Right there. And I don't look at it, well.
The blanket certificate limit, this is consistent with prior year. And what this means is that any blanket certificate, and keep in mind, blanket means it's from an extended amount of time, usually over the entire fiscal year. And that it would be, if it was for more than 30,000, then I would bring it to you for your blessing. And then at the next board meeting, which is in July, we will actually have a list of what those are and for your approval. They usually consist of Washington Electric, the things that are routine, consistent, and repetitive.
Yeah, I think that's what
Okay. I think.
Yes, because, and the reason I say that is because it's completely up to us. It's our own discretion. The law just says you have to have a policy. It doesn't say how much the policy has to be. But I think 30,000 is a good cutoff because you would want to be aware of those other things, even if it's only once at the beginning of the year.
And if we get questioned, I mean, you're always available and you answer it.
True.
And you dig it up and research it on the spot or.
And there's no motivation to say, well, let's
Yeah.
just do this PO for $29,999.99 so that we don't have to take it to the board. Like, that's not even a thing, so.
I was gonna say, I do that a lot of work.
Yeah, too.
That's why you guys always think so poorly about it.
It's a reflection we get.
Motion,
Split that up.
McElroy, second. Carpenter.
McElroy,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Archer,
Yes.
Stottsberry, McKee.
Yes.
I said was. 1 second, I've got technical. There we go. Health insurance rates. The new rates, I think I told you maybe in my notes earlier this year to expect a 9% increase. That's what this reflects. Dental actually went up 2.5%, but that's what it is. Still with the same company, still the same network.
I'm getting over the shock here. Motion,
That's a monthly,
yeah,
just so you know.
yeah.
Employee share is $70 for single, $140 for family per month, and nothing for dental, zero dental. And that's if you're on the traditional plan. Now, if you take the HSA option, of course, you can lower that to zero. Your employee share is actually zero. And, oh, speaking of which, I forgot to put the HSA rates up there.
That's okay.
I'll get that. I'll add that in for you. So, because you'll want to know, so you can refer back to it.
Okay.
But also a comparable 9% increase, though. Now I lost my train of thought. What was it?
Employee shares.
Oh, employee shares. Yeah, the 740. So if you take the HSA option, you go down to nothing, 0 employee share, or some amount that you determine you want to contribute to your HSA. And I guess that's it.
Motion.
Motion.
Archer,
That's the motion,
second. Carpenter.
Archer,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
McElroy,
Yes.
Stottsberry, McKee.
Yes.
Our insurance carrier. If you remember, last year I went into great lengths explaining about the SORSA, which is a risk pool. It's different than what we have had in the past when we just actually purchased insurance from Liberty Mutual. So we're under this risk pool now, Ohio Risk Sharing Authority, SORSA. And once again this year, it was the best rate when we shopped around. So Reed and Bowers, the company that helps me shop around for the rates. And I've been very pleased with their assistance.
So we got nothing with Anderson though.
No. Well, I take that back. Our bonds are through them. The bonds for the superintendent and myself.
Motion. Carpenter, second.
Second.
Stottsbury.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Stottsberry?
Yes.
Archer?
Yes.
McElroy?
Yes.
McKee?
Yes.
Last but not least, I have a transfer for you to approve. It's the $150 transfer from the general fund to the food service fund.
1,000. 150.
At least he's always coming over there.
Motion.
It is what it is. Like it,
Oh, yeah.
we need it.
Motion.
I'll second.
Archer, Carpenter.
Archer?
Yeah.
Carpenter?
Yes.
Why couldn't you raise your hand first?
I did. But
McElroy?
I didn't
yes.
Stottsberry?
Yes.
And McKee?
Yes. Dan the man.
Okay,
Oh, boy.
first items, personnel matters. You see certificated contract there for Tyler Engel as a PE special ed. You see a host of supplemental contracts, extracurricular volunteers, extended service for Chris Shebner in her new role as guidance counselor. We did have 4 internal applications for the guidance counselor position,
How many?
4 internal,
Okay.
and she was the most senior and the most qualified given it all.
So she knew what to say.
I could see some good conversation with Laura on Sunday.
Oh, it's gonna be huge. I'm coming down.
I heard the Crocs.
Oh,
This is a public meeting.
sorry.
Motion.
And
Second.
the administrative salary schedule is on there.
Yep, second. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Who was first?
Stottsbury.
Okay. Stottsberry?
Yes.
How's JC gonna have? Does she
Archer?
play volleyball in schedule?
Yes.
Carpenter?
She plays rugby.
No,
Or
lacrosse.
lacrosse, Jesus, yes.
That'd be pretty cool if she did.
He said yes.
He said yes.
Yes.
McElroy?
Yes.
McKee?
Yes, that's what affected.
Okay, the other personnel ask for your approval to employ Daniel Connolly as assistant football coach. Those 3 paid on the previous.
It's to be determined yet.
Motion.
Motion.
Archer, second.
Second.
Carpenter.
Archer?
Yes.
Carpenter?
Yes.
McElroy? Stottsberry?
Yes.
McKee?
Yes.
Okay, under business matters, you see a couple things that are fairly routine. A couple requests for golden use. Summer camps, a lot of those dates were TBA, but based on the governor's announcement today, starting June 22nd, looks like that our contact sports can resume some competition, whether it's, there's guidelines. Quite honestly, as of right now, I haven't read those guidelines specifically, but things are going to start opening up in that area.
Dan, we don't want to mention specific dates yet either, right?
Right.
Okay.
No. We also have the policies. This will be the final approval of those. Third read. So a lot of things are going to be happening between now and the end of this month as far as guidelines for reopening the school. We're going to talk about that a little bit. Reopening back up, and I think there's some, calls for some optimism, different than when I spoke to you last. So I feel like we're trending in the right direction.
Motion? Stottsbury, second. Carpenter.
Stottsbury,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Archer,
Yes.
McElroy,
Yes.
McKee.
Yes. That all you got, Dan?
Sure.
Board bulletins there from the vocational school. She got anything else to add, Trenda, that you know of?
Matt Sheridan is the new superintendent there.
Who?
Matt Sheridan, he's most recently the superintendent at Crooksville. Good guy. Known him for a long time.
Where was he at before that? That name sounds familiar.
He was out in
Tri-Valley?
No, he was from Northwest Ohio.
Oh, okay.
But really,
Have we seen that name somewhere?
but good guy, know him well. He participates in a lot of the things that we're all involved in. He'll be good. Yep.
All right, financial, Trenda, you got anything?
No, I actually just deleted it because I had nothing. Can you imagine that?
Where did it go?
We had enough to go.
I figured I was pushing my limits there.
Involved in phase 3, we are on time. Everything's looking good there. Diamond Cutters is actually in the cafeteria this week, starting to work on the concrete floor. All the kitchens have been completely cleaned and ripped out, kind of waiting to go back with the new. We've got some plumbing things to look at in both kitchens and check the drains and making sure those things are clear. And so everything's currently still on schedule. Playground, if you haven't had a chance to walk over behind the elementary, look at the playground. Now all the manholes are set. It was really helpful during this last rain to have those in place. It really helped dry that area up pretty quick. But they're making a lot of progress. It's kind of neat to see the improvement in that area. We took out that large tree around back, and we also just yesterday took out that large tree that was right at the corner of the building.
I haven't seen that.
Huh?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's opening up. So if we have time here in a little bit, we can probably take a walk real quick through the addition and go over behind the playground so we can do that. I've already told you that Chris Shepner was transferred into the elementary school counselor position. That's going to be, and that's the thing moving forward. The 7 years I've been here, there's been a lot of discussion about the elementary and middle school schedule. Okay, so it's always been like, in my opinion, an unnecessary last minute fire drill before school starts. Well, now everybody's ramped up. Well, here's the best way I can tell you to describe the difference. In grades 5 through 8, in the past, we basically scheduled 12 kids. Think about it, 4 grades, you had group 1, group 2, group 3.
Yeah.
Robitussin for everybody, group 1 all gets this, group 2.
Yeah.
That takes about 10 minutes. Now let's just assume that there were 80 kids in each one of those grades. Times 4 is 320, times 10, so there's 10 periods. That's how many scheduling combinations we have now. Like it's a completely, if you're talking about personalized learning, each individual might need to go 3 different directions at the same time. we're not used to that. And add on top of it that you're dealing with really a small staff and a small school. So, when you have those mathematical issues in a large school, you have a lot of subjects that are offered every period during the day. So like in my previous district, American history was offered every period of the day. Algebra was offered every period of the day. So there were so many places to fit. We have a lot more handcuffs than that. So really to make things personalized and to give people choice and to have an individual pathway and to provide equity, it is truly a Rubik's Cube. And then you add the complexity of, I only have these 4 staff members till noon and they go to high school. So it is a bigger deal. It is stressful for everybody, but just understand, just do the math there, how many different combinations there are, and then you add the different elements that have to fall in place. So now all the kids' course requests are entered, all the courses are entered, and now you work through a process of where you run a scheduling run, and it tells you that 50% of your kids got scheduled 100%. Well, we're not going to be happy with 50%. So you see where the major conflicts are, then you start tweaking things, then you run it again. Well, the key is you can't change too many things at once. So you start with the 2 biggest ones, you run it again, and maybe that gets you to 60%. Then you have to make choices. So this is a process. This process will be shorter in the future because now all of our courses are set up. We're going to have a different process for scheduling individual kids, and it will move a little bit faster. But it is a completely different way of scheduling. So it's also an issue you get into when you have a K-8 building and you also have K-4, because K-4 typically moves as classrooms. But now over there, we share staff between K-4 and 5-8. Then we also share from 5-8 to 9-12. So there are there's a lot of things. We're in pretty good shape with where we're at, especially never have been there before, but now we have to work through the conflict. So, and actually what should happen, in the future through the counselor position, which is why I brought this up, when a family comes in with their child in the spring to schedule for the following year, we're entering in courses right now.
So I'm going to interrupt. Throughout this process, my question would be, who are the key players? And at what point, the individualized plan, do we involve the family? But you're answering it.
Yeah, that quite honestly, that should have happened in February, March.
Well, yeah, and I think neither here nor there, but I look at it as I went to school when there wasn't this individualized plan. Mm-hmm. And so when I hit college, it was literally shocking for me because that responsibility fell on my shoulders to do. So I feel like this is awesome.
And I make that comment when I said it should have happened in February under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
We've been working to get here.
Yeah.
So where we're at today, timeline, I think is fine. If we're at this same point next year, it's not fine.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is a huge transition. So why do you think that we've stuck with that antiquated scheduling method for so many years? Because nobody wanted to fight through this.
Yeah, this is.
Hey, sorry, you're a 1, you're a 2, you're a 3. It's just the best way I know how to get you scheduled to move through the day.
So does that mean that we've eliminated the ability grouping?
Mm-hmm. But that every kid takes algebra. I want you to remember when that happened, everybody was like, oh, that's impossible. But every kid can do algebra. Well, guess what? For the last 10, 12 years, guess what every kid's been doing? Algebra. Our expectation changed. Okay? So when you think about ability grouping, when we all made that switch to algebra, somebody came and they were going to sell me a new algebra curriculum. And oh, by the way, we'll throw the extended algebra in for free. Well, what's extended algebra? Well, extended algebra is where you predetermine what kids it's going to take 2 years to get through algebra. Oh, sorry, guy. I think it's going to take you. Well, he didn't have even the ability to do it in 1 like everybody else. We just predisposed him to 2, which then deprived him of other opportunities. We didn't do it, and we never had a kid that it took longer than 5 9 weeks to get through it. And so when the expectation levels or change, we find that there's a lot of kids that can get there. So, and then when we talk about STEM, and you think about 90% of the future jobs are going to be STEM related. We can't just offer algebra to some kids. We offer upper level math to some. Oh, sorry, you've got a bright future, you don't. We have to have access for everybody. And it starts with breaking down the ability group. But I will tell you, the reason that we've ability grouped, in my opinion, in the past, was for the ease of scheduling.
Because you never seen kids change much from one grade to the next as far as the groups.
No. So that's a definite move in the right direction. It won't come without, there's going to be some, we will have to differentiate our instruction a little bit differently, but it's going to be good. And it also allows you to be in a situation where I struggle in one area, so I can get the support here, but then I excel in this area, so I can move over here. I won't necessarily be with the same group of kids every day, all day. That to be quite brutally honest, that practice was deemed antiquated in the mid to late 90s. So step in the right direction. Reopening of schools, we're not there yet, but I do believe some of the things that we're all privy to. I do believe that there's a focus on local control and local decision making, which I would say very broadly would mean that we can make decisions in this room and what we think is best for our community, and parents then have choices to make for their own child and what they think is best. And the thing that I can tell you right now, and I think Philip could echo, we'll be ready to deliver instruction greater than we've ever had before, whether it's in person or remote. So a parent would have that. If your kid were sick and they needed to be home for 2 or 3 weeks, that's going to look completely different in the future than it has in the past based on the lessons we learned.
So just make sure I'm understanding this correct. So the guidelines from the state, you feel like the local government they're going to give the local government, health department, things like that, control, and parents are going to be able to choose if they come to school?
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. But what I would tell you is if you had someone in your family that was high risk, you had somebody you're really concerned about, and you felt like it wasn't quite time, we could still offer you a remote learning opportunity.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Options.
I really think there's been a lot, again, I'm going to say that cautiously, but I certainly feel better than I did 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I feel like most people through the state feel the same, and I believe that he listens. That's all.
All right. You got executive session?
Yeah.
I'll now accept the motion to enter into executive
Super quick.
session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee